Professor Castelnuovo, because it's our school. We do a retrograde uncinectomy.
That's also easier, also, right? If
It's easier.
safe.
It's safer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will go and poke the.
Usually, Professor Castelnuovo, in I think every of his lessons, he always say that once upon a time he went to do a dissection course in Germany. It was maybe the 90s, early 20s. There were many surgeons performing live dissection, and there was one famous one who did anterograde uncinectomy, and in the first step he damaged the lamina papyracea, because if you do from anterior to posterior, you don't have the landmark, okay? And I said before to the audience that we do from anterior to posterior only when we have like maxillary emphysema, when you have that the uncinate process is frontalized. In this situation, you have the vertical portion of the uncinate process is on a sagittal plane. On a sagittal plane, and then you can use the retrograde because you can remove from posterior to anterior. It's safer. If you have a pathology inside the maxillary sinus, you may have that the uncinate process is frontalized. In this situation, you can use a cottle. You can cut, you can detach the insertion on the lamina papyracea and then cut, but only in that kind of situation. If you have a situation like that, always perform the retrograde because it's safer, okay? So from posterior to anterior, you recognize the natural ostium. Why? Because the accessory ostium is always oriented vertical. The natural ostium is always oriented 45 degrees lateral, okay? And so you can distinguish the natural ostium from the accessory ostium, okay? And the last part of the uncinectomy is the vertical uncinectomy, okay? You can calibrate the natural ostium using this kind of straight cutting instrument. There's no need to go far behind.
So when you do uncinectomy, you don't take this inferior part.
You can take using a basket, but only if it's needed. Okay. If you can see the natural ostium and it's wide open, there's no need of going down, because if you go down, one complication, I did one once, is that you can enter the inferior meatus. If the inferior meatus is pneumatized, when you perform the uncinectomy and you go very much inferior, you may enter the inferior meatus. And once I did it because there was maxilla that was very lateral, and the axilla of the inferior turbinate was very pneumatized. So we performed the uncinectomy, and we said, "Oh, this is the maxillary sinus." Instead, it was the inferior meatus. Okay, this is a possible complication. There's no need to go far posteriorly. Do you remember that the surgery we did the last week? I went very much posterior because I saw that the medial wall was a little bit more medial, and so I thought that there were maybe some Erzala cell, but it was only the maxillary sinus. If you go much posteriorly, you do a type 1 maxillectomy, because you remove the area of the posterior fontanelle, but when you perform a simple middle antrostomy, there's no need to go so much posterior, okay? And the last part, we frontalize the uncinate process. We use J. Curette. When you do this kind of maneuver, you have to go up, and when you go up, remember to not go lateral, but come a little bit medial, because you have to go this direction, not this, because of course if you go lateral, you enter the lamina papyracea. You have to follow the insertion and when you are at the level of axilla, you have to turn a little bit medial, okay? So you frontalize the vertical portion, and then with a cutting instrument, usually this is we use it's called 4. It's a number 4 cutting instrument, okay? 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, number 4. I can show you after the difference, okay? You detach the uncinate process from the lamina papyracea. Remember to preserve the most cranial part, which is the vertical bar, the medial wall of the ager nasi, okay? Because you will need it afterwards when you do the anterior ethmoectomy and frontal sinusotomy. Okay, so if you are doing only a middle antrostomy, you always leave the vertical bar, the cranial portion of the uncinate process, which is the vertical bar. It's called vertical bar by stem, okay? Because you will need it afterwards when you perform the frontal sinusotomy, because you have to follow the vertical bar until you reach the frontal drainage pathway. Okay?